The galaxy never imagined that humanity could simply vanish. For 5 years we served the Federation, built their worlds, defended their borders, but when they tried to chain us, to take what was ours, we didn't beg, we didn't fight, we disappeared, and the stars bowed in our absence. The gathering storm and breaking point. The silver halls of the Galactic Federation stretched endlessly before Ambassador Chen Wei as she walked toward the Grand Assembly. Her footsteps echoed against the crystalline floor, each step carrying the weight of 5 years of frustration. Behind her, Lieutenant James Rodriguez carried a data tablet filled with reports that would likely be ignored, just like all the others before them. The Federation had seemed like humanity's greatest achievement when Earth first made contact. 43 alien civilizations, all working together in harmony across the stars. The Zephyrians, with their translucent bodies and telepathic abilities, had welcomed humanity with what seemed like open arms. The Krellians, resembling giant mantises with their compound eyes and razor-sharp limbs, had praised human adaptability. Even the ancient Viridians, beings of pure energy contained in mechanical suits, had voted to accept Earth into their alliance, but promises and reality were different things entirely. Chen entered the assembly hall, where representatives from all member species were already seated. The Zephyrian delegate, Zelith, floated at the center podium, his jellyfish-like form pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that indicated authority. The Krellian ambassador, Thector, clicked his mandibles in what Chen had learned was amusement. They always found human concerns amusing. Today's agenda involved voting on exploration rights for the Andromeda sector. Humanity had spent 2 years developing the technology to safely traverse the dangerous radiation fields there. Their scientists had worked tirelessly, creating shielding that could protect any Federation vessel. Now that the work was complete, the vote would determine who could use this human innovation. Zelith's telepathic voice resonated through every mind in the chamber. The Zephyrian Empire claims primary rights to Andromeda exploration. Our superior mental capabilities make us the logical choice for first contact with any new species discovered there. Chen stood to object. The shielding technology was developed entirely by human scientists. Earth requests equal access to any territories discovered using our innovations. Thector's compound eyes swiveled toward her. The Federation voted to share all technologies freely among members. Surely humans understand the concept of collective benefit. His words dripped with condescension. The vote proceeded as Chen had feared. 37 species voted to grant the Zephyrians exclusive rights for the first decade. Only 6 voted for shared access. Humanity's vote counted as one among many, despite their crucial contribution. Rodriguez leaned close to Chen and whispered urgently, "Ambassador, I'm receiving emergency communications from Earth. The Zephyrians have sent a fleet to establish a mining base on our moon. They claim it falls under Federation resource-sharing agreements." Chen's hands clenched into fists. Earth's moon held deep cultural and strategic importance to humanity. It was their first step into space, their gateway to the stars. Now aliens wanted to strip mine it for helium-3 without even asking permission. She activated her communication device and connected directly to Captain Sarah Mitchell, commander of Earth's defense fleet. "Captain, status report." Mitchell's face appeared on the small screen, her expression grim. "Ambassador, 17 Zephyrian mining vessels have entered lunar orbit. They're ignoring our request to withdraw. They claim Federation authority supersedes Earth's sovereignty." Chen looked around the assembly hall. The other delegates were already moving on to the next agenda item, discussing trade routes through human space as if humans weren't even present. The message was clear. Humanity was not a partner in this alliance. They were a resource to be exploited. 3 days later, the situation escalated beyond anything Chen had imagined. The Zephyrians hadn't just sent miners to Earth's moon. They had brought military escorts. When Captain Mitchell moved her ships to block the mining operations, the Zephyrians responded by surrounding Earth itself with their fleet. President Maria Santos called an emergency meeting of Earth's leadership. They gathered not on Earth, which was now under alien surveillance, but in the secret facility on Mars that the Federation didn't know existed. Humanity had learned early not to share everything with their supposed allies. Director Marcus Thompson of the Colonial Development Agency presented his report first. Every human colony is reporting similar situations. The Krellians have claimed mining rights to the asteroids near New Beijing. The Viridians are demanding access to our fusion reactor designs. The Saurians want our agricultural data from the Terra Nova colony. General Alan Foster of the United Earth Military spoke next. "They're picking us apart piece by piece, taking everything we've built while giving us nothing in return. When we object, they hide behind Federation law that they wrote before we arrived." President Santos studied the faces around the table. Each person there had once believed in the dream of interstellar cooperation. Now they all wore the same expression of betrayal and determination. "How long would we need?" Santos asked Thompson. Thompson pulled up a holographic display showing every human settlement across 20 star systems. "If we move carefully and maintain absolute secrecy, we could evacuate everything valuable within 4 months. Leave them empty shells while we relocate beyond their reach." Foster nodded slowly. "My ships can maintain the illusion of normal operations while we prepare. The aliens are so convinced of their superiority, they won't expect us to simply leave." Santos made the decision that would change human history. Begin Project Exodus immediately. Every human, every piece of technology, every scrap of knowledge we've gained, we take it all with us. The secret evacuation began the next day. While Ambassador Chen continued attending Federation meetings and smiling politely at their condescension, human colonies across the galaxy began the greatest disappearing act in history. Factories were quietly dismantled during night shifts. Research data was copied and original servers destroyed. Families packed their belongings in containers marked as agricultural supplies. On the colony world of New Sahara, Governor Ahmed Hassan supervised the removal of atmospheric processors that had made the desert planet habitable. The machines were human-designed, human-built, and human-maintained. Without them, the planet would return to being a lifeless rock within months. The Krellians had already filed paperwork to take control of New Sahara once the Federation formally seized all human colonies. They would find nothing but sand and empty buildings. Engineer Lisa Park worked 18-hour days dismantling the fusion reactors that powered the human sectors of Babylon Station, the Federation's primary trade hub. The aliens had grown dependent on human power generation, never bothering to learn how the reactors actually worked. They assumed humans would always be there to maintain them. They were wrong. The evacuation ships were marvels of human engineering, disguised as ordinary cargo vessels but equipped with the most advanced stealth technology humanity had developed. They gathered at predetermined coordinates in deep space, far from any Federation sensors. Captain Mitchell commanded this ghost fleet, organizing the massive exodus while maintaining the appearance of normal defensive patrols around Earth. The Great Vanishing and Aftermath. 4 months after President Santos gave the order, humanity was ready. Across 20 star systems, on dozens of worlds and hundreds of stations, human colonists waited for the signal. They had said goodbye to homes they'd built with their own hands, to gardens they'd planted, to dreams they'd invested in alien soil. But they carried with them something more valuable, the knowledge that freedom was worth any sacrifice. Ambassador Chen Wei stood once again in the Federation Assembly, but this time she didn't take her assigned seat in the far corner reserved for junior members. She walked directly to the center podium, a place traditionally reserved only for the founding species. Zelith's form flashed with indignant colors at this breach of protocol. "The human delegate will return to her designated position," the Zephyrian commanded telepathically. Chen ignored him and activated the Assembly's main display system. A massive holographic map of the galaxy appeared, showing every human settlement marked in blue. The delegates who had been chattering among themselves fell silent, sensing something momentous was about to occur. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Federation," Chen began, her voice carrying clearly through the hall's acoustics. 5 years ago, humanity joined this alliance with hope. We brought our innovation, our determination, and our desire for peaceful cooperation among the stars. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. The Krellian ambassador's mandibles clicked nervously. Chen continued, "In return, you have taken our technology while denying us equal access to exploration. You have claimed our resources while excluding us from decision-making. You have demanded our solutions to your problems while treating us as servants rather than partners." On the holographic map, the blue lights marking human settlements began to fade one by one. Thector rose from his seat, his compound eyes reflecting alarm. "What is the meaning of this display?" "The meaning," Chen replied calmly, "is goodbye." The blue lights vanished faster now, entire systems going dark in seconds. The real-time feed showed the truth that the Federation had been too arrogant to notice. Human colonies weren't just being evacuated, they were being erased. Every trace of human presence, every piece of advanced technology, every innovation that alien species had come to depend on, all of it was disappearing. Zelith's telepathic voice boomed with fury. "You cannot simply abandon your obligations to the Federation." Chen smiled coldly. "Watch us." Reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. The fusion reactors powering 17 major trading stations had been cleanly removed, leaving entire sectors without power. The medical facilities where human doctors had been treating a plague affecting 3 Saurian worlds stood empty, their equipment gone. their research data wiped. The atmospheric processors that made 6 marginal worlds habitable were silent, their core components missing. The Viridian delegate, usually emotionless within his mechanical shell, transmitted visible energy fluctuations indicating panic. The quantum communication network. 60% of our interstellar communications rely on human-maintained relay stations. All human relay stations have been decommissioned and removed, Chen confirmed. I suggest you find alternative methods of communication. The assembly erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages, their universal translators struggling to keep up with the cacophony. Some demanded military action. Others called for economic sanctions. A few pleaded for negotiation. Chen raised her hand for silence. Any attempt to pursue humanity will fail. Our destination is beyond your reach, protected by technologies you chose to exploit rather than understand. You have lost the right to our cooperation, but billions will suffer without human support. The Saurian ambassador's scales had turned pale with distress. Our plague victims, the colonies depending on human food production, the trade routes protected by human peacekeepers. You should have considered that before voting to steal our moon, Chen replied. Before claiming our colonies. Before treating us as inferiors to be commanded rather than equals to be respected. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. Humanity wishes you no harm. We simply choose to build our future without you. Perhaps when you learn to value others as partners rather than resources, we can speak again. Until then, goodbye. The aftermath of humanity's departure sent shockwaves through the Federation that grew worse with each passing day. The Krellians and Zephyrians, who had been held back from war only by human diplomatic intervention, immediately began mobilizing their fleets against each other. Without human peacekeepers, old territorial disputes erupted into open conflict. On Babylon Station, the loss of human fusion reactors caused cascading failures throughout the facility. Emergency power could only maintain life support in critical areas. The massive trade hub that had been the Federation's economic heart began a slow spiral toward abandonment. The Viridians, despite their advanced energy-based forms, found themselves crippled without the quantum communication network. Their civilization depended on instantaneous data transfer between their collective consciousness nodes. Without human relay stations, they were reduced to light-speed communications, causing their unified mind to fragment for the first time in millennia. But perhaps the most devastating loss was something less tangible. Humans had been the Federation's problem solvers, their innovators, their bridge builders between species that had nothing in common except the ability to travel between stars. Without that binding force, the alliance began to crumble. The Saurian plague continued to spread without human medical researchers working on a cure. 3 colonies had to be completely evacuated, their populations fleeing to overcrowded core worlds. The Saurian Emperor, who had voted to restrict human access to medical patents just 6 months earlier, now faced the very real possibility of his species' extinction. Desperate attempts were made to locate humanity's new home. Scout ships searched every uninhabited system within range. Long-range sensors scanned for any trace of human technology. But humanity had learned their lessons well. They had studied every Federation tracking method, every sensor capability, every possible way they might be followed, and they had prepared countermeasures for all of them. The new beginning and return. 10 years passed in the darkness between stars. The Federation, once proud and mighty, had fractured into competing factions. The Krellian-Zephyrian War had consumed 12 systems. The Viridians had retreated into isolation, their fragmented consciousness turning inward. The Saurians had lost a third of their population to the plague. Dozens of smaller species had simply withdrawn from interstellar society, returning to their homeworlds and closing their borders. In the ruins of what had once been the Grand Assembly, only 7 species still sent representatives. Zelith, the Zephyrian who had once commanded such authority, now bore scars from an assassination attempt by his own people, who blamed him for humanity's departure. Thector had lost 3 of his 8 limbs in combat, his once proud warrior stance now supported by mechanical prosthetics. They were debating whether to formally dissolve the Federation when the sensors detected something extraordinary. A massive fleet had appeared at the edge of Federation space. Not just appeared, one moment there was empty space, the next there were 500 ships in perfect formation. The ships were unlike anything in Federation databases. Sleek and beautiful, they seemed to bend light around them, making them difficult to focus on directly. They broadcast a single message on all frequencies in all known languages. Humanity has returned. We come with an offer. A single ship separated from the fleet and approached Babylon Station. The station was a shadow of its former glory, operating on minimal power, most of its sections abandoned. The human ship docked at the central port and three figures emerged. The woman in the center wore a simple black uniform with no visible rank insignia, but she carried herself with unmistakable authority. The Federation delegates recognized her immediately, Chen Wei, though 10 years had added silver to her hair and new confidence to her bearing. Beside her stood Captain Sarah Mitchell, her military uniform displaying medals from conflicts the Federation knew nothing about. The third figure was someone new. A young man whose eyes held an intelligence that seemed almost alien in its intensity. Zelith spoke first, his telepathic voice subdued. "You have returned. Why?" Chen smiled, but it was not the diplomatic smile she had worn before. "We never left, not entirely. We've been watching, learning, growing. While you fought over scraps of what we left behind, humanity built something new." She gestured to the young man beside her. "This is Dr. Alex Chen, my son. He represents what humanity has become in our absence, not just survivors or innovators, but a species that has learned to stand entirely on our own." Alex stepped forward, his voice calm and measured. "In 10 years of isolation, we've developed technologies that surpass anything the Federation ever imagined. We've cured diseases you haven't even discovered yet. We've found ways to travel between stars that don't require the jump gates you depend on. We've built cities in spaces you believe are uninhabitable." Thector's mandibles clicked slowly. "Then why return? You clearly no longer need us." Mitchell spoke for the first time. "Because isolation isn't humanity's nature. We are builders of bridges, seekers of connection. But this time, we return on our own terms." Chen activated a holographic display showing a new map of the galaxy. The human fleet's position was marked, but so were dozens of other locations. New human colonies, research stations, and defensive installations, all in regions the Federation had deemed impossible to inhabit. "We propose a new alliance," Chen announced. "Not the Federation's model of dominance disguised as democracy, but a true partnership. Each species maintains complete sovereignty over their territories and technologies. Trade is negotiated between equals, knowledge is shared by choice, not compulsion. And disputes are resolved by neutral arbitration, not by whoever has the most votes." The Saurian representative, weak from the ongoing plague, leaned forward desperately. "Will you share the cure? Our people are dying." Alex nodded and produced a small data device. "The cure for your plague, freely given, no conditions, no demands for payment. Because that's what partners do, they help each other." The Saurian took the device with trembling hands, tears flowing from his reptilian eyes. Zelith's form pulsed with uncertainty. "And if we refuse your proposal? If we demand you return to the Federation under the old terms?" Chen's expression hardened. "Then you'll never see us again. The galaxy is vast, and we've learned to thrive in places you can't even reach. We offer this chance for reconciliation once. There won't be a second offer." The silence stretched long in the ruined assembly hall. Finally, one by one, the remaining delegates began to nod. They had learned the hardest lesson of all, that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their adaptability. It was their ability to walk away from those who didn't value them and to build something better on their own. The new alliance that formed that day was nothing like the old Federation. There was no central authority, no supreme council, no assumption that any species was superior to another. Instead, there was a network of equals, each bringing their unique strengths to the table, each respecting the other's sovereignty. Humanity had indeed returned, but not as supplicants or servants. They returned as what they had always been capable of becoming: leaders, innovators, and above all, a species that knew their own worth. The stars themselves seemed to bow in acknowledgement of what humanity had achieved, not through conquest or domination, but through the simple act of refusing to accept anything less than respect. In the years that followed, the new alliance flourished in ways the old Federation never could have. The Krellians and Zephyrians, exhausted from their war, found human mediators who helped them establish lasting peace. The Viridians, their consciousness fragmented, discovered human technologies that allowed them to reunite their collective mind while maintaining individual thought. The Saurians, saved from extinction, became humanity's strongest allies and advocates. But perhaps the greatest change was in how species viewed each other. The age of taking without asking, of assuming superiority, of treating allies as resources to be exploited, all of that ended with humanity's return. Because every species now knew that respect couldn't be demanded or assumed. It had to be earned, maintained, and reciprocated. Ambassador Chen Wei, now elder stateswoman of the Human Diplomatic Corps, stood once more in an assembly hall. But this one was different. The seats were arranged in a circle, with no position higher than another. Representatives from 30 species sat as equals, their voices carrying equal weight. And at the center of their shared flag was a simple symbol, an open hand, offering partnership to any who would take it as equals. Humanity had walked away from the stars once. Their return had changed the galaxy forever. And in the vast cosmos, whenever species spoke of courage, of dignity, of the power of saying no to oppression, they spoke of the day humanity chose exile over servitude, and in doing so, taught the universe the true meaning of freedom. Part 4. The Hidden Fortress. Beyond the edge of known space, where even the bravest Federation scouts feared to venture, humanity had built something extraordinary. The region was called the Void Nebula by those who knew of it, a massive cloud of dark matter and radiation that scrambled sensors and made navigation nearly impossible. The Federation had marked it as uninhabitable 3 centuries ago. They were wrong. Admiral Jessica Park stood on the command deck of the Atlas, humanity's new flagship, watching as the last evacuation convoy emerged from jump space. Through the viewports, she could see their new home spread out before them. Phoenix Station, a massive structure built into a rogue planet that drifted through the nebula, served as the heart of New Terra, humanity's hidden civilization. The station was a marvel that no Federation engineer would have believed possible. Its builders had used the planet's own magnetic field as a shield against the nebula's radiation. Massive towers stretched up from the surface, each one containing entire cities. Gardens flourished under artificial suns. Rivers flowed through carefully designed channels. It was not just a refuge, but a statement that humanity could thrive anywhere. Dr. Michael Foster approached the Admiral with his latest report. His team had been working non-stop since the evacuation began, cataloging and preserving every piece of human knowledge and culture they had saved from Federation space. Every book, every song, every scientific formula, every grandmother's recipe had been preserved. They would not lose their identity in exile. Admiral Park reviewed the data on her display. 23 million humans had successfully evacuated from Federation space. Not a single life had been lost in the exodus. The evacuation fleet had performed beyond all expectations, and now those ships were being converted into the foundation of humanity's new infrastructure. Nothing would be wasted. The communication system chirped with an incoming message from the construction crews working on the outer platforms. Chief Engineer Jennifer Wolfe appeared on the screen, her face streaked with sweat but wearing a satisfied smile. She reported that the new manufacturing facilities were ahead of schedule. Within 6 months, they would be producing everything from food to starships without any need for outside resources. In the residential sectors of Phoenix Station, families were settling into their new homes. The children who had been born on alien worlds under alien rules were now playing in parks designed by humans for humans. Schools were being established where human history would be taught with pride, not as a footnote in Federation textbooks. Churches, temples, mosques, and meditation centers were being built side by side, celebrating humanity's diversity without alien interference. Colonel Robert Nash commanded the defensive platforms scattered throughout the nebula. His soldiers had spent years training in secret, preparing for the possibility that the Federation might try to force humanity back into servitude. Now they maintained constant vigilance, their advanced sensors penetrating the nebula's interference to watch for any sign of pursuit. But the Federation ships that occasionally approached the nebula's edge always turned back, their technology unable to penetrate the natural barrier that humanity had learned to navigate. The Science Division, led by Dr. Elizabeth Tran, had made remarkable discoveries in just the few months since the evacuation. Free from Federation restrictions on research, human scientists were pushing the boundaries of what was possible. They had developed new propulsion systems that could navigate the nebula's chaotic gravitational fields. They had created medical treatments using resources found only in this hostile region. They had even begun to understand the fundamental forces that made the nebula itself, turning what others saw as a barrier into humanity's greatest asset. In the diplomatic quarters, former Ambassador Chen Wei worked with her team to monitor Federation communications. They had left behind hidden observation probes, microscopic devices that transmitted data through quantum entanglement. Through these, they watched as the Federation struggled with the loss of human support. They saw the wars beginning, the alliances crumbling, the desperate attempts to reverse engineer human technology that failed because the aliens had never bothered to understand the principles behind it. The agricultural domes were perhaps the most impressive achievement. Director Lisa Chang had created ecosystems that replicated Earth's various climates, from tropical rainforests to Arctic tundra. Crops from every human colony had been preserved and were now growing in carefully controlled environments. The food production was not just sufficient but abundant. humanity would never go hungry in their new home. Captain David Miller commanded the scout ships that explored deeper into the nebula. His pilots had discovered something remarkable. The nebula was not empty but filled with resources the Federation had never imagined. Asteroids rich in rare minerals floated in the radiation fields. Gas clouds contained elements that could be harvested for fuel. Ancient derelict ships from unknown civilizations drifted in the depths, their technology offering new insights and possibilities. The education system was being revolutionized under Professor Maria Rodriguez. Without Federation oversight dictating what could be taught, human children were learning not just facts but how to think, how to question, how to innovate. Classes in creativity were given equal importance to mathematics. Art was celebrated alongside science. The goal was not to produce workers for Federation industries, but to raise a generation of humans who could imagine and build a better future. In the deepest levels of Phoenix Station, a secret project was underway. Director Marcus Thompson, who had orchestrated the evacuation, now led a team working on something that would guarantee humanity's independence forever. They called it the Genesis Protocol, a plan to terraform the rogue planets scattered throughout the nebula. If successful, humanity would have not just one world, but dozens, all hidden from outside interference. The military academy, established by General Alan Foster, was training a new generation of defenders. These were not soldiers meant for conquest, but guardians of humanity's freedom. They learned not just combat, but diplomacy, not just tactics, but ethics. They understood that true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to know when fighting was necessary. Meanwhile, the cultural preservation teams worked tirelessly to ensure that humanity's diverse heritage survived their exile. Museums were being built to house artifacts from Earth and the abandoned colonies. Digital libraries contained every piece of human literature, music, and art. Virtual reality systems allowed people to walk through reconstructions of Earth's great cities, to stand in places that they might never see again but would never forget. The medical facilities under Dr. Sarah Kim were making breakthroughs that would have been impossible under Federation regulations. Genetic therapies that could cure previously untreatable diseases were being developed. Cybernetic enhancements that could help the disabled not just function but excel were being perfected. The human lifespan itself was being extended through treatments that the Federation had declared too dangerous to research. In the zero-gravity shipyards floating above Phoenix Station, humanity's new fleet was taking shape. These were not the utilitarian vessels they had used in Federation space, but ships that represented human aesthetics and values. Sleek and beautiful, they incorporated artistic elements alongside functional design. Each ship was unique, reflecting the personality of its crew rather than conforming to Federation standards. The communication networks linking all human settlements in the nebula were unlike anything the Federation had achieved. Using quantum entanglement and technologies developed from studying the nebula's unique properties, humans could communicate instantaneously across vast distances. No message could be intercepted, no conversation monitored by outside forces. Privacy, that fundamental human right that the Federation had never understood, was absolutely protected. As the months passed, Phoenix Station grew from a desperate refuge into a thriving civilization. The population was not just surviving but flourishing. Birth rates increased as families felt secure in their future. Artists created new works inspired by their unique surroundings. Musicians composed symphonies that incorporated the strange harmonics of the nebula itself. The young adults who had spent their childhood under Federation rule were finding their voices. They formed councils and committees, planning for humanity's future with an optimism that had been impossible before. They spoke of the day when humanity would emerge from the nebula not as refugees, but as a power that could stand equal to any in the galaxy. But perhaps the most significant change was in the human spirit itself. The constant feeling of being second-class citizens, of having to prove their worth to dismissive aliens, of fighting for every scrap of respect, all of that was gone. In its place was a quiet confidence, a certainty that humanity had chosen the right path. They had traded the illusion of acceptance for the reality of freedom. As Admiral Park stood on the observation deck watching the nebula swirl around their hidden fortress, she thought about the Federation delegates who had driven humanity to this point. They had meant to humble humanity, to put them in their place. Instead, they had freed them to become everything they were capable of being. The greatest revenge, Park thought with a smile, would be their success.